Hi folks, I'm Sheila and welcome to Counsellor Convos. Let's get stuck in. Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Counsellor Convos. Now for any newbies on here, I'm Sheila, I'm a registered mental health counsellor and I'm delighted to be sharing this podcast with Jonathan. Hello Jonathan.
Hello there, Sheila. How are you?
Now, I'm very well. Now, some people might know you as Jono.
Yes, the vast majority of people know me as Jono, but my given name is Jonathan Oates. But everyone knows me as Jono. My old boss gave me that name. No one had ever really called it me before, and she claimed I'd told her that's what my name was, but I never had. So when I set up my own business, Sheila, I thought, well, what name can I give it? And I just called it Jono's Tourism, because I like it. It's a nice, easy name to remember.
It's a lovely name, John. Brilliant to be share this podcast here with you now. So, Jono, for those that don't know you, which I'd be very surprised if there's anybody that doesn't know you, but feel free to share kind of anything, about kind of you as in, what title you'd give yourself or your job title, or just for anybody that doesn't know you then, Jono.
Well, officially, I'm a tour guide, historian, author, but there are quite a few people who call me Mr. Lichfield because I know so much about Lichfield, and I call myself the King of Lichfield, and I've got a crown as well to prove it. So there you go.
Wow, Jono, is it really bad that when you said Mr. Lichfield, my comedy head went straight to a calendar, and I won't tell you what image.
Oh. There we go. We should do it. We should do it.
We could do it, but we're not going there, Jono.
Probably not. No. Upset too many people.
Absolutely. So look, as always, this is Counsellor Convos, conversations. It's a part chat, part counselling session. It's whatever we want it to be. I know that Jono has a real interest in men's mental health, so we're not going to put any expectations on here. I would like to ask though about the historian in you, Jono. Where does that come from? Have you always been interested in history?
Well, it goes right the way back really to when I started grammar school, I would think, when we started to do history lessons in grammar school, and I loved doing that. And I had a particular interest in the Napoleonic Wars, and in particular the Battle of Waterloo.
Wow.
And I've not realised this shit, probably until fairly recently. At the age of 12 to 14, I probably knew more about the Battle of Waterloo in particular than most historians who would be paid an absolute fortune to do it. And I knew that the whole layout of the day, all proceeding up to the Battle of Waterloo. I knew all the commanders. I knew all the battles, all the skirmishes. I knew that the order of the day, what happened when. I collected all these little, these like little miniature soldiers, like plastic soldiers, and hand painted them. I would spend hours in my bedroom painting them in all the different colours and everything, and creating my own little sort of like battle scenes, I suppose. So absolutely, I loved it. I loved that particular period. So I loved doing history. Got A-level in history. And when I went to see my careers teacher at the school I was at the grammar school I was at, and he was saying, Oates, what is it that you want to do? And I said, I love history. I love researching history. I'd like to do something like that. He didn't really laugh, but he was quite dismissive. It wasn't his fault. And he sort of said, Oates, you're not going to get the kind of qualifications at a level to be able to do that. He said, but you're good at English. Why don't you have a look at administration? There's Sutton College next door to where we were. Why don't you look at something like that? And probably from that, not directly as a result of that, but I kind of dropped it, got into work. When you start doing work, all those other distractions come in. Got myself a house and did the usual type of things.
John, can I just pause you there? So
yeah, go ahead.
It was a career guidance teacher.
Yeah, that is right. That is right.
Who kind of put you off going down?
Kind of. Yeah.
When you look back at that, John, would you have been well able to do that? Knowing the sort of person you are now, knowing that your natural love for history, do you think, well, he's thinking, no, you're better at English, but actually you've such a love for history. Do you think you could have gone on and studied history?
I think I probably could, but I understood what he was saying, that you would need, very high levels of qualification to get through that system. But you can also do it through determination, Sheila.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah, and if you love something, then, you should have that enthusiasm to go through with it. But at that stage, I was very much influenced by my elders. I hadn't got the experience that I've got now. If you said to me now, I would have probably, come back at him and said, well, I think we ought to do this. Why aren't you helping me?
Jono, you would have said, I'll show you.
I'll show you. Yeah. But there are no point in regrets, are there, Sheila? What happened then, and I went on a different route, and then finally sort of came round to it again, in later life.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, Johnny. You're naturally brilliant at what you do. Folks, people, listen, if you haven't been on a Johnny tour, you just got to go on one. Because like you, Johnny, you're so enthusiastic about this. And do you know what? I don't know about you, Johnny, but I find it actually doesn't matter what the subject is. If somebody is really passionate about something, I think it's infectious.
Yes, definitely. I'll tell you a little story. I may have told you this, personally, before. So I did one walking tour with a group of about 18 people, I suppose, and there was a chap on the tour, and afterwards he came up and had a quick chat with me. And sometimes people ask you questions about what you'd said, or they want clarification, or they know something about the topics you've been talking about. And he said, thanks for that. I said, oh, thank you. And he said, I don't like history. And I said, oh, okay. He said, I only came on this because my partner was coming and she dragged me along and I didn't want to come. And I said, oh, that's all right. I said, not everyone has to like history. But he said, I've got caught up in it. And I said, why is that? And he said, it's because of your enthusiasm. He said, you were so enthusiastic. I found myself being drawn in and I really enjoyed it. So there you go, Sheila. If I can do that, that shows it's about enthusiasm each and every time you do it.
It is. And as you say, determination. And there's there's something really to be highlighted, the stuff that you've discussed already, Jono, about kind of being influenced by other people and by, by your elders, and by kind of saying, stick to English and stuff like that. I wonder for you, John, like you naturally came back to this because you are so passionate. History is you, Jono. There's no doubt about that. I wonder though, because of those experiences you had with the career guidance and trying to side you in another direction, did that affect your confidence or not, or your ability? Like, I know you had determination, but was there a period of time where it did maybe have an influence or make you doubt yourself at all?
Not really, Sheila. I don't recall that. It was quite a little while ago now, obviously. I don't really recall that. I just sort of accepted it, you see, because I'd been brought up, listen to your elders, don't talk back, don't chat back, be respectful. And so I just thought, well, he's a person in a senior position, a much more senior position than me. So I just thought, well, that's just what it is. It's like being told what to do in lessons. You just, in my case anyway, you followed what the teacher said. So I just kind of thought, okay, he must be right. I'll leave it.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Like, the reason why I'm highlighting that is, as a counsellor, I come across situations a lot where somebody in school maybe led somebody down the wrong direction, that maybe they didn't take into all perspectives here, they didn't take in everything into account, and then it may have led somebody to think, oh, I'm not really that good at that. And then for years, they're not doing what they're naturally drawn towards. And then sometimes they're very lucky the way that they come back to it later on in life. I'm delighted that didn't happen with you, John. You were just determined. You naturally came back to that. But I think there's a point here, is certainly now to highlight that with the listeners, is that, that sometimes the elders, they don't know what's best for you.
Yes, that is correct. Completely correct. Yes. But obviously when you're, 16, 17, I just thought that's how it was. But that now, yes, I totally understand. Yeah.
It's just having an open mind. It's looking at all different perspectives here. Yeah, I mean, I would have had that myself in school, that I was told I wouldn't do any good and stuff like that. And then I wanted to do honours in English, and they said I won't even pass ordinary English. Never mind your honours English. So I said, right, I'll show you. And I
Yeah.
didn't even read the novel. The novel was Wuthering Heights. And I was that stubborn that I didn't even read the novel. And I decided I was going to pass without reading the novel. And I did. And I got
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
You know,
Marvelous.
but
Yeah.
it's pure determination of
Yeah.
um it's interesting like that whole thing about purpose, and passion, because it is an important people. It's an important part of people's lives. Mental health. There's a big thing about people having a purpose, having a passion. And I think some people are lucky in that they have it from a very young age. So I was always into acting, entertaining, stuff like that. And then my journey naturally led me being a client in therapy, loved the whole psychology side of things, and then becoming a counsellor and doing both, making both, doing both, because I love both just as much, being a counsellor or being a comedian and entertainer, and then I do my mental health shows. I find that for some people, when you don't have that purpose or passion early on in life, they can feel a bit lost actually, and sometimes they're always searching for that. And I always say to people about trial and error here, folks, that it's just about how do you know you don't like something unless you try it. What do you
Yes.
think about that, Jono?
Yes, I think that's very valid, Sheila. I do several tours with school groups and young people, and so they're coming up. It's what I would call lower sixth form, yeah, I'm not sure what year it is, but lower sixth. And when I finish my walking talk, I describe to them about how I love what I do, and have a real
Yeah.
passion for it and a real purpose. But I know exactly what I want to do. And I said, I'm not here to give you careers advice, but if you can find a vocation, if you can find something that you really enjoy doing, so that you get up every morning thinking, I'm going off to achieve A, B, C, D, that to me is much better than having a highly paid job, which brings you all the baubles and the trinkets of the cars and the houses and whatever. But you don't enjoy it. You don't think, yes, I'm going to get up tomorrow and have a really good day. You get up and think, oh gosh, I've got to drag myself in and go again. And that is really why I say to them, and it does seem to sort of like resonate with them. Just find something that you really enjoy doing, and each day will go in a blur, as opposed to it dragging if you're doing something just for the purpose, just for getting the money at the end of the day.
Do you know what? That's so important. That's so linked to somebody's mental well-being.
Yeah.
Yeah, your gut instinct will tell you whether you're doing something that you want to be doing or something that you should be doing. Do you know something, John? Like there's so many times where, again, I come across clients that they would have gone on to university to study a certain subject, thinking that's what they wanted to do. But then the reality of how that played out in a day job sometimes is very different to what they expected. There might be a lot more paperwork, there might be a lot more politics behind it, and a lot more stuff that they never expected it was going to be like. And what I would say to the young people listening is that if you have an interest in a certain job that you want to do, even before you go to university, is do a free day somewhere shadowing somebody doing that job. So
Yes.
almost, it's one thing getting the qualification, it's another thing going out and doing that job and seeing what the reality of that is like. Because I'm coming across that a lot, and I kind of think, do you know what? Actually, if I was to advise a young person listening to this, I'd say shadow a job you're interested in, or
Yeah.
before you go to study that, and see what it's like to actually do that job.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yes, there's lots of students out there looking for work experience, and it's quite hard. I think it's harder now than it ever was, Sheila, because of all the rules and the regulations, behind that, and employers, particularly in the current climate, financial climate, probably, that's quite a thing for them to set up and do. But I think it's very key as a young person at that age, 16, 17, to go and actually see what it is like in a work environment. Because you just don't know, do you? Don't get any experience. You go to school every day. It's very regimented. You don't get to see that working world.
Yeah. And I think as well that there's a lot to be said about making it work for you. So, for example, I work privately. I'm my own boss. I can make sure I don't overload myself with the amount of people I see for counselling. I think that's so important. Whereas I could get involved in some agencies and I know that the amount of work they put on the counsellors, it's kind of counterproductive. It's a bit worrying, actually.
Yeah.
So it's finding a way of making it work for you. Now, Jono, I know you've got an interest in men's mental health. So are you okay if we talk a bit about that?
Of course, it's not a problem, Sheila.
Okay. So look, Jono, I mean, feel free to share as much or as little as you like. And tell me to feck off. By the way, feck is not bad language. I respect
Yes.
it. You were at my show. I read
I've been at your shows, Sheila. Yeah.
on the word feck.
Yes.
Not
Fantastic.
bad language.
Not a bad language.
But anyway, feel free to tell me to feck off if you don't.
Yes.
So, John, what's been your experience of kind of mental ill health? Have you ever suffered depression or anxiety? And if you don't mind me asking.
No, that is absolutely fine. So I'll give you two instances. So the first one, oh gosh, Devin, how many years would that be? Probably 12 years ago. And I was working for district council, and I got very, very frustrated, Sheila, by people who had got no real interest and hadn't got the passion. And there was an incident at work. I won't go into the full details, where there was a senior member of staff who I felt, was just not performing their duties properly, and I got very wound up by this, and it impacted. And we've got an event on. It was a tourism event, and I was there as kind of the senior person on the day, and all this sort of frustration and anger, I suppose, sort of built up. And we just had this tent, gazebo, I suppose, where we were setting up everything. And I just had this sort of meltdown, really. I got so cross. And I was saying, we're not going to carry on. We're not going to do it. We're going to cancel this today. We're not doing this.
Yeah.
And one of the people who was with me phoned my supervisor, who wasn't at the event, but came down. And I just felt so distraught and everything, and so angry. And I remember someone I knew who had got a hospitality room, like that, a little B&B, and I was out on the street, almost in tears, and she said, "Jono, come in, sit down." And we just sat down, and as a result of that, Sheila, the council, I was off work for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was offered counselling, which I took because it was offered to me, and I thought, well, yes. And as a result of that, and you will know this only too well, that sort of helped me, really, and it calmed me down. And just having a break, for that 6 months, getting away from all those daily frustrations.
Yeah.
But it impacted me so much, Sheila, when I was walking down into town, which I do, as you know, on a regular basis into Lichfield. I realised it was something not intentional, not purposeful, but I realised that what I was doing when I was walking, I was avoiding any route that took me anywhere near the council building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like subconsciously, and I suddenly thought, oh gosh. And if I saw someone, coming out of the council offices, I would sort of like, rather than going up to them saying, "Hi, how you doing? How are you?" I beat a hasty retreat. I just couldn't face it. So, and eventually, after 6 months, the various sort of like meetings and stuff, and I'd refresh myself and went back to work. But, I would see this person, who had impacted on me.
Yeah.
And I found it very difficult, to sort of engage with it in any way, because I wasn't sure how I was going to react, whether it made me feel worse. I don't think it would have made me feel better. So that, it was it was a very serious thing. And for someone like me, who's so engaging and so outgoing, for people to see me in that kind of situation, where clearly I didn't really want to engage with them, with people I would have met previously, several times a day and had a chat, had a coffee, whatever. It definitely had an impact on me.
Absolutely, Jono. First of all, thank you for sharing that, Jono. Really appreciate that. I think people's stories are so powerful because I think so many other people can relate and realize that they're not on their own with it. There'll be people listening to this, they'll be able to relate to your story, Jono. And just that situation where there's obviously a conflict of interest here. You're watching what's going on in this organization, this event. You've got all your passion, and you're watching somebody who's not really stepping up, if you like, and then it kind of, I can imagine that going against your ethics, Jono, because you're such a professional person. You're such, if you do a job, you're such a loyal person. You know, like there's so many different amazing traits about you. But I could imagine that when you're working with somebody that's very different to you, whether it's intentional or not, and they're not that bothered and they're not doing the job properly, that of course that's going to have an impact on you. Do you know what I mean? Because it kind of goes against where you're at.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. Yeah.
So I wonder then, Jono, what was the outcome of that? Because okay, before you answer that, because you got to the stage where this person had obviously had an effect on your mental health. Just seeing them was triggering for you. You were avoiding them, going down different streets and stuff like that. So again, we're kind of highlighting how much, mental well-being, if we've had a scenario where we've got a difference of opinion, a situation with another person, how that can really affect us mentally. Absolutely. That I wonder what happened after that. Did you continue, do you still avoid this person, or do you not care anymore, or where are you at with that?
So yeah, I would generally, I would just not engage with him. I didn't have to come into contact with him on a daily or even weekly basis. His role, was such that we didn't really, have to liaise with each other or be in the same office or even same building as him. So yes, Sheila, maybe. What would have been good was for me to have said to him, look, let's have a sit down and a chat, and I'll explain to you how I felt and how you made me feel and how bad I felt, to discuss that. But I just, at that time I couldn't do it. Maybe now I could. Yeah. So that continued. He's since left the council. It was a little while ago, obviously, and towards the end we would sort of like nod at each other, almost like a little truce, but we certainly never, talked or chatted really. He would just sort of like acknowledge me and I'd acknowledge him. You can't, carry these things, forever and a day, can you? At some stage, you do have to sort of say, it happened. It wasn't great. And he could have requested a meeting with me, Sheila, and said, I'm really sorry, Jono, please explain what occurred. I was totally unaware of what happened.
Do you know what? You're absolutely spot on with that. When you're in a situation with two people, both people have their own bit of responsibility here. So it's not all on you, that they have a choice where they can ask to have a conversation, stuff like that. And I suppose it depends whether that person is able to listen. Because I know with some people, they're so set in their ways that you'd almost be wasting your time to just try and have a conversation, say, look, can we have a chat about this? How about I explain what we've done for me, and then I'll have a listen to what we've done for you. If somebody is open to that, that's brilliant. But if somebody isn't, sometimes your gut feeling will tell you that. And especially at the time when you're in a vulnerable place and you'd had enough and all the build up of stuff, you just had to protect yourself and keep yourself away. There's a couple of things that come to my mind about that, Jono. There was just an expression. Hold on, I'm taking a drink of whiskey. Walk. Just an expression that comes to mind, okay? It's a little bit naughty, but anyway, it's come to mind. And it's, your happiness is the best revenge on the people who try to bring you down.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And you know what? I always come back to this, and I do this with clients over and over again, is trusting in your own truth. And the thing is, John, is that whatever went on there, you are a respectful, moral, ethical, professional person. You know that you also within your right if you saw that something wasn't right or wasn't okay, that it's your birthright to be able to voice that. Somebody can either agree or disagree, that's down to them, but you can voice your truth and you can trust in your own truth. And they can agree or disagree. And so it does kind of come back to that the most important opinion is you knowing your truth. And almost like what I'd love is for you to get a point that if you ever did bump into this person, you just like, you'll be you. You just be, hiya.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
I know, I do me. And of course, there's going to be people that don't like me. And I'm absolutely fine with that. I not expect everybody to like me. I don't like everybody. Do you know what I mean? Like, so this is our human right. So it's about kind of being okay with that and just trusting our truth. Does that make sense, Jono?
Yes, of course it does, Sheila. Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was that, and I'm hearing as well that scenario, there was a lot of built up of anger and frustration. And you were spot on when you said that, John. You can't keep building that up. Somebody either explodes or they implode.
Yes.
Implode will come out where they might go the opposite way into a deep depression or a really bad anxiety where they're not functioning at all.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
And then the second time, and this was more recent, and I spoke about it at the networking meeting that we were at yesterday. So this was not caused by a similar set of circumstances. So it's a physical issue which impacted on my mental health.
Oh.
So I have a kidney condition. Which means that I put on a lot of sort of excess fluid in my lower legs and feet. You know, my feet swelled up so much. I normally wear a 5.5 shoe, but I'm now in a 9.5, sometimes 10 wide fit shoe because my feet are so swollen. And so.
Wow, I mean, that's a significance of a difference here.
Oh, yes, massive difference, almost twice the size. So, yes, I find it really hard. I can't have lace-up shoes. I just have to go on with the strap, you know, because the lace-up ones, I can't get them together. So I was diagnosed with it. I was in hospital for 10 days because I was so bad. My blood pressure was extremely high, you know, cardiac arrest territory. Even some of the nurses who came to take my blood pressure were quite shocked as to how high it was in hospital. Amazing. And so that continued for quite some time, and I went on to a clinical trial meds as well as normal blood pressure medications and water tablets, etc. And I went from taking nothing, not even an aspirin a day, to taking 18 tablets every single day, including these clinical trials. And the clinical trial meds, some of the side effects, you know, they impacted on how your body sort of like works. So I became very, very unsettled, very, very uncomfortable, not in any pain. And of course, because I was carrying all this excess fluid in my legs, I didn't feel like walking. So I would normally walk 8,000 to 10,000 steps a day, every day, all around Lichfield. Yeah. And I found myself thinking, I can't do it. You know, each step was just a slog. And so I took to driving my car down into the local car park in town so I could walk a shorter distance. And that was highly unusual. And from that, you know, to get up every single day and do that. And, you know, initially it didn't work. The meds didn't work. And I just thought at one stage, I thought, gosh, this is going to be it now. You know, when I was in, you know, like mid 60s, I thought, this is it. This is how I'm going to be. You know, I'm not going to be able to go out and do the walking, you know, that I love and stuff, and going around and chatting to people. And so it got me, you know, very, very down. And when I spoke to my consultant at Derby, and he said, unfortunately, John, you know, that is the side effect. That is, you know, it's nothing unusual, you know, but it just impacted on me. And so when I was at the networking with you yesterday, you know, finally 2 years later, the meds have worked to a degree. I've lost a lot of excess fluid from my lower legs, not in my feet, unfortunately. But I now feel I'm now back to walking. You know, the number of steps. I don't use my car anymore. I'm back to walking, and walking in itself, Sheila, as you will know, extremely good for your mental health. the stresses and strains that you get in a car. And I've seen so many cars driving around recently with people blasting their horns at each other. Real rage, not just a simple tap, sounding them for 30, 45 seconds. And I'm thinking, wow.
Yeah.
So, to me, to get back to doing that walking, there's nothing like having a fresh, it doesn't matter whether it's raining, snowing, sleeting, whatever. I just love going out and having a walk round, and you're able to think because you don't have to concentrate on, am I steering my car in the right direction? I don't want to knock someone down. It's really good. So, excuse me. So I feel now in my mental health that I'm much, much stronger and fitter than I was. And to think I was thinking at one stage, I thought, gosh, I'm going to be in my 80s and still feeling like this. Now I've got a real sort of like purpose as to, yes, I'm back to normal. I'm now really looking forward to it. Yeah. Rather than thinking I'm in a rut.
Before we focus on John and be back, first of all, I'm so relieved actually listening to this, John. I'm so sorry to hear if everything that you've been through, it sounds so scary, it sounds so frustrating. You can really see how when somebody's situation changes and they have a physical condition, a physical illness, how that can really affect their mental health if they can't do the things that they enjoy, the things that they're used to, and understandably so. That you can really see how that happens when somebody who may have never suffered with a mental health, they become physically ill and then they become mentally ill. You can totally see why that would happen. Wow, Jono, that, and as you said at one point, you're taking is this, and is this kind of my life, all the things.
Is this it?
Absolutely, Jono, and then that kind of element of hope goes where you're taking nothing's working initially and stuff like that, and even the nurses, as you said, in the hospital, oh, his blood pressure. Like even if the nurses in the hospital,
yeah, exactly.
then you know.
That was when it struck me. I thought, right, this is not good.
The clock might be ticking here.
Indeed. I was so lucky because it was, cardiac arrest, definitely. I've spoken to loads of doctors, consultants, all saying the same thing. So I was very lucky. Sure, I live on my own, so had anything have happened, come back from, whatever, doing a walking tour and collapse, yeah. So I'm just really, really grateful, really grateful.
Grateful. And John, like we said about the trials and then the medication. So was it a mixture of the two that has been able to manage this condition and get you back to where you are now? What do you put that down to?
I'm not really sure, Sheila. I'm not really sure. I think the clinical trial meds, have worked, but they clearly messed me around as well, I was on all kinds of tablets, warfarin tablets, blood thinning, really horrible. They just make you feel so grotty. I'm not. I think it is the clinical trial meds that finally have worked and continue to work. And I just have to keep on taking water tablets every day, which continues to get rid of the excess fluid. And on some days, when I sort of get up in the morning, because obviously when you're lying flat, it helps. I get up and I feel my legs, and I think, they're right, they're properly better. And then a couple of days later, the fluid comes back again, So
you're constantly managing this.
Yes, but as I say, it is simple as take your tablets every day, and if you take water tablets and I take 4 a day, which is quite high, that then helps to drive out the excess fluid. So as long as I keep doing that, I think it's going to be controllable. But certainly for me now, my life is very manageable in terms of what I've got, whereas 18 months ago, 12 months ago, it wasn't. I felt, this is not how I should be living,
No, I mean, you've got other people with a similar story that they might have a different outcome here, and they might have had to adapt their lives and work with what they can work with. You know what I mean? Like that. But thankfully for yourself, John, oh, wow. I mean, thankfully for medical intervention. I mean,
oh, indeed.
Wow.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, because I was a ticking time bomb. I know it sounds a bit dramatic. But had enough. The strange thing, it was because the only reason this highlighted, otherwise I'd have carried on, is that when I had a COVID jab, my last COVID jab, I had a nasty reaction to it and a physical reaction. And that got me in to see the doctor's practice, you know, and when I saw, it was a nurse that I saw at the doctor, and she just said, "Oh, Jono, we'll just take your blood pressure, you know, just as a matter of course, is what they do, you know." And I can still remember to this day, Sheila, her face just dropped, and she went, "Jono, that is high. That is really high." And she looked so worried, you know, and so yes, and that's kind of what started it, you know, after Burton Hospital, Derby Hospital, and yeah. Yeah.
Did you say this was all about 2 years ago then?
Yeah, right. 2 years ago,
Yeah.
last October, something like that.
Yeah.
And then
Okay, Connor, do you need a drink kind of thing?
it's okay. I've got a coffee cold. Shit, it's very frustrating. Just sticks with me. So yeah.
No, we're on Zoom here. If you need mouth to mouth, I can't help you.
So yes, to you. But as I say, you know, I think for me, Sheila, you know, very important. You know, it was a real sort of hard slog. But you know, now I feel much better in myself. My appetite's come back because I would have half a plate full of food. I think that was the volume of tablets I was taking as my metabolism, you know. But now, you know, I eat a full plate of food every day. I'm back to my usual routines.
How do you look after your mental health then?
You know what, Chair? I talk to a lot of people, and I find it very therapeutic, and it's very interesting to listen to their stories as well. And when I speak with people about, you know, the issues that I've had, and then they tell me about what theirs are, and also people that they know, you know, and I think that sort of helps balance things out a little bit, and helps you relax a little bit more. And going to something like you know, a networking meeting, Sheila, you know, as you know, it's a big group that we go to, isn't there? And when you
like, oh my Mitch, that's business first. We'll have people from business first listening to this podcast. You know, there's no doubt about that. You know that. It's
a big group, and there have been some very moving updates with people's personal situations, you know, and you know, that takes some doing, you know, to actually speak in front of a group of 40 people and tell them all about a circumstance, you know, tragic circumstance in some cases. And you can see the people, because they, you know, I go irregularly, you know, as a substitute, but those who go regularly, you know, you're like a little group of friends, a little community group, and that is why I think, Sheila, people feel when they come to that group, they feel like they can open up. And
Also, Jono, you're right with all of that, and it takes me back to something you said at the start of the podcast, where we're talking about, you know, things being infectious, and you know, being aware of our own power, that we can actually influence people in a positive way. And you were saying about that tour, the way that guy, that he wasn't interested in the history and he was dragged along, and obviously he's like, you got me into this because you're so infectious. You're so enthusiastic about this. And certainly at Business First, I'm always banging on about being okay with not being okay. I always bang on about that. Keeping it real. If you're not, if you're having a shite day, say you're having a shite day, but you're all right having a shite day, and that you'll ride that way far quicker than trying to make yourself be happy when you're just not feeling it. Especially January time, motivation. I've had days when my motivation's gone out the window, but I'm very good with myself with that. I just go with it. I do the bare minimum. I hide away, watch a cheesy movie, and I'm grand then the next day because I've really looked after myself. But I had a scenario where somebody else was being really honest in their like 60 seconds. So for people not familiar with business networking, group of people we meet early in the morning, and everybody has 60 seconds to say about kind of what they do, what they offer, if there's any connections that they want to make. and this particular person was really honest about their business, wasn't going well, and that, they were practically crying in their 60 seconds. And at the end of the meeting, I said to him, fair play to you for really modelling that behaviour. And he said, that was you, Sheila. He said, because you're also banging on about being it would not be okay. And so, in a way, it was a parallel to Jono, isn't it? That
Yes.
you're passionate about, that you cannot. Isn't it interesting? We think from our own personal power, we are a lot more powerful than we realise, and we can actually have a positive influence. Because you do, Jono, your passion for history. I mean, like, I wish you could take out all the schools, not take them out. I wish you could take them out and do they could experience your tour, because it's like you say, you bring history to life, but you make it fun, you make it engaging. So many people learn better through that.
Yes, of course. Yes. Generally, when I'm doing the younger people's groups, and so if they're sort of like 8, 9, or 10, and Sheila, I deliver pretty much the same talk that I would do for adults. I think it's wrong to sort of like patronise them and stuff. Some of the best questions I've had, Sheila, I have to say, on my walking tours have come from 8 to 9-year-olds.
Go on, Sheila, the last one. Come on, is there any particular question? We've got 5 minutes left. Come on.
Okay, let me see if I can describe it. So, by Lichfield Cathedral, there is a statue of Charles II. Yep.
Okay.
And he stands there, and he's got his crown on, obviously, and he carries his staff, and he carries an orb. Yep, like a round orb. Yep, in one hand. And I did this walking tour with a group, and it was a young lad called Logan, who was 9 years old, and I was telling them the story of Charles II. And it was about 3 weeks after the coronation of King Charles III. So Logan said, "John, I can ask you a question." I said, "Of course you can." And he pointed at the statue and he said, "You see that orb that Charles is holding?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Is that the same orb that Charles III was holding in his coronation a few weeks ago?" And I went, "Oh." And he went, "I don't mean that one, because that one's made of stone, but I mean the golden one that he was holding on the day." And I said, "Logan, you're very lucky. You're talking to the person who knows the most about Lichfield's history of all time. And I don't know." And I shook my fist at Logan and said, "You little tinker, you've asked me a question. I don't know the answer." But I went and researched it. I went and researched it, Sheila, and it was spot on. He was Charles II was given that orb at his coronation, when they came back to the monarchy after Oliver Cromwell. And so that was exactly the same orb. But what I loved the fact that not only connected that, he also said, not the stone one, I mean the proper golden one. For a 9-year-old, I thought it was staggering. I emailed his head teacher later on and said, "Please go and thank Logan for beating King Jono, the king of Lichfield history, so that he would be rewarded for that." Fantastic.
That is a wonderful story. I loved it. Fair play to Logan. Logan, if you're listening.
Yeah, young Logan. Yeah, beat Jono.
Not many people can keep Jono studs.
I know.
Jono, let the listeners know the name of your book and where they can get it, please.
Yeah, of course. And my book is The A to Z of Lichfield. It's the history of Lichfield through the letters of the alphabet. I wrote it a few years ago. You can get it from Amazon, but much better off to pop into a local shop. Waterton's hold it, the Samuel Johnson Birthplace Museum. And if you can't, find a copy, get a copy, just contact me on any of my socials or on my website, johnostourism.co.uk, and I'll sort out a copy for you.
Of course you will. Of course you will.
And sign it.
Yes. Yes, of course. Of course. Jono, what an amazing person you are. Thank you so much for coming on here, and thank you for sharing your personal stories. Again, people really resonate with that. I think it's really healthy to know that people aren't on their own that they're not on their own with their own stuff, and and how other people can, have a negative influence on you. But again, I will encourage to hold your throat and just keep being you. Do you know what I mean? And whether they like you or they don't like you, stuff them. That's
makes no odds. Makes no odds.
Makes no odds. You just keep doing you and
keep going.
How wonderful from a medical point of view that, I know the interventions and the trials, and I know that's been tough, but wow, look at the places. And look, if you're ever stuck for a size 9 pair of shoes, now, listen, you won't see this, but I'm going to show my size 9 shoe.
Looks lovely. I'll have it. Yep.
But there we go, Jono. If I can always lend you my shoes, okay?
Yes, of course. Walking someone else's shoes, it's always a good idea, Shane.
It is. Jono, thank you so much. And the listeners
Mother welcome.
who've listened to all of this, thank you so much for listening. And as always, that we hope you find something helpful in this chat. Feel free to give us a thumbs up, to subscribe for free if you haven't done so already. So if anybody's listening to Spotify or Apple, myself and Jono are actually having this conversation it's on my YouTube channel, or will be. And so you can actually see us in person, and you can see my size 9 shoe. And Jono, thank you so much.
You're more than welcome, Sheila. It's been great, great fun, as always. As always, good fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing your business first again very soon.
Yes, I'm due to come back in February at the very earliest, so I shall see you all then, and we can talk about what we've done here, can't we?
We can indeed. We can indeed. Thank you very much again, Jono. Take care.
More than welcome. Have a great day, guys, and great day, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you for watching Counsellor Convos with Sheila McMahon. If you've enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to the channel.